Every morning the sun rises. You have never once wondered if it would. You go to sleep assuming it will come back. You have never had to do anything to make sure it does. The Aztecs did not have that luxury. They believed that the sun was not guaranteed, that it rose each morning only because their god of war and sun, Huitzilopochtli, fought for it every single night in the underworld. Fought the darkness, fought the stars, fought to drag the sun back to the surface of the sky. And he could only win that fight if he was fed, if the people of the earth gave him what he needed. Human hearts, still beating, torn from living chests at the top of the highest temple in the world. To understand why the Aztecs believed what they believed, you need to understand how they thought the world began. Not once, not in a single act of divine creation, but 5 times, because the world had been destroyed 4 times before this one. The Aztecs called these destroyed ages the 5 suns. Each was ruled by a different god, each supported by a different cosmic force, and each was eventually consumed by its own instability. The world before ours ended in a great flood, the one before that in rain of fire, before that a storm of wind that stripped the earth bare. This was not ancient history to the Aztecs. It was a warning. The universe was not stable. It was not safe. Every age of the world had ended, and there was no guarantee that this one would be different, unless something was done to prevent it. The 5th sun, the current age, was created at a place called Tenochtitlan, the city of the gods. 2 divine figures threw themselves into a sacred fire to become the sun and the moon. But their sacrifice alone was not enough to make the sun move across the sky. The gods themselves had to bleed to set the world in motion. Among all the Aztec gods, one was built specifically for this purpose. Not a god of creation, not a god of wisdom or harvest or rain. A god of war and sun. A god whose entire existence was oriented around a single violent daily task. His name was Huitzilopochtli. In Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs, it means hummingbird of the south, or left-handed hummingbird, depending on the translation. The hummingbird connection was not decorative. In Aztec belief, warriors who died in battle were reincarnated as hummingbirds, following the sun through the sky. Huitzilopochtli was the embodiment of that warrior sun. His birth story is one of the most dramatic in all of Mesoamerican mythology. His mother, Coatlicue, the earth goddess, she of the serpent skirt, became pregnant miraculously when a ball of feathers descended from the sky and touched her. She had 400 children already, the Senson Huitznahua, the stars of the southern sky, and 1 daughter, Coyolxauhqui, the moon. When Coyolxauhqui learned her mother was pregnant, she was not curious. She was outraged. She gathered her 400 brothers and led them to the mountain where Coatlicue waited. They were going to kill her. They were going to kill the child before it was born, and they did not make it in time. Huitzilopochtli was born fully grown, fully armed, and fully aware of what was happening. He emerged from his mother carrying the Xucoatl, the fire serpent, as a weapon. In a single battle on the mountain of Coatepec, he defeated all 400 of his brothers and dismembered his sister Coyolxauhqui, whose body fell in pieces to the base of the mountain. The Templo Mayor, the great temple at the heart of Tenochtitlan, was built to mirror that battle. At its base, the priests laid a great circular stone carved with the image of Coyolxauhqui, dismembered, her body arranged in fragments around the central image of her face. Every sacrifice that took place at the summit fell past that image on the way down. The logic of sacrifice in Aztec theology was precise, not bloodthirsty. The gods had given everything to create the world, their bodies, their blood, their lives. Humans owed a debt that could never be fully repaid. Sacrifice was not punishment, it was reciprocity. It was the minimum payment required to keep the cosmic machinery running. Huitzilopochtli needed hearts. Specifically, he needed the hearts of warriors, the most powerful life force available. Hearts that had fought and survived. Hearts that carried the energy of conflict within them. The term the Aztecs used translates roughly as precious eagle cactus fruit. The heart was not a horror to them. It was the most valuable thing a human being possessed. The scale of Aztec sacrifice has been debated by historians for centuries. Spanish accounts, which were written by conquerors with obvious motivation to portray the Aztecs as monsters, describe numbers that most modern scholars consider vast exaggerations. The reality was likely smaller in scale, but no less sincere in intent. The Aztecs were not performing cruelty, they were performing maintenance. Huitzilopochtli's demand for warrior hearts created one of the most unusual military institutions in human history. The Aztecs called them the Xochiaoyotl. The Spanish called them the Flower Wars. They were wars fought not to conquer territory or destroy an enemy, but to capture warriors alive. The Aztecs and neighboring city-states, particularly Tlaxcala, Huexotzinco, and Cholula, agreed to meet in scheduled combat. Both sides sent their finest warriors. The objective was to take captives. A warrior who died in battle was useful. A warrior who was taken alive and sacrificed at the Templo Mayor was something more, the most prestigious offering available. For Aztec warriors, being captured in a flower war and sacrificed was not the worst outcome. It was, in some interpretations, the best one. Warriors who died in sacrifice joined Huitzilopochtli in the sky, accompanying the sun from dawn to noon, eventually reincarnating as hummingbirds. The sacrifice was framed not as death, but as transformation. Whether the captives always shared that theological comfort is something the historical record cannot fully answer. The Aztec sources, which survived the Spanish conquest only in fragments, present sacrifice as honorable. The captives' voices are largely absent from that record. The entire apparatus of Aztec religious life, the calendar, the temples, the flower wars, the sacrifices, was oriented around a single terrifying calculation. The fifth sun was already old. Every age of the world had ended. This one would too. The Aztec calendar predicted that the fifth sun would end in earthquakes. Not flood, not wind, not fire, but a catastrophic series of destructions on the day 4 movement, when the earth would shake apart and the sun would finally go dark. The question was not whether this would happen. It was when, and whether humanity could delay it long enough to matter. Huitzilopochtli's role in this was not passive. Every night he descended into the underworld, Mictlan, and fought the forces of darkness to drag the sun back to the horizon. Every night was a war. Every dawn was a victory, and every victory cost something. The Aztec Empire at its height stretched across central Mexico, encompassing millions of people and dozens of conquered city-states. Its military power was extraordinary. Its agricultural engineering, the Chinampas, the floating gardens of Tenochtitlan, fed a city larger than any in Europe at the time. And all of it, every canal and market and aqueduct, was understood as part of the same system. Civilization was what kept the sun alive when the Spanish conquistadors destroyed Tenochtitlan in 1521. They did not just conquer a city. They dismantled a cosmology. They buried the Templo Mayor under what would become Mexico City. They burned the codices, the books that contain the full record of Aztec theology, history, and science. Most of what we know about Huitzilopochtli comes from fragments, from the memories of survivors, from the records of priests who wrote down what they could before it was lost. What survived is enough to understand this. The Aztecs were not a civilization of monsters who happened to build beautiful cities. They were a civilization with a sophisticated, internally consistent theology that placed an enormous and terrible obligation at its center. They believed the sun would die without them. They believed they were the only thing standing between existence and darkness. Whether that belief was true is not the point. Every civilization organizes itself around something it cannot afford to question. The Aztecs organized themselves around Huitzilopochtli and the fifth sun. Other civilizations have organized themselves around other certainties. The question worth asking is not whether their belief was correct. The question is, what are the beliefs we act on today that a civilization 1,000 years from now will find equally incomprehensible? The Aztecs genuinely believed that human sacrifice was the only thing keeping the sun alive, and by the standards of their theology, they were right to believe it. Is a civilization wrong to do terrible things in service of something it genuinely believes is necessary? Or does the act define the civilization regardless of the belief behind it? Next time on Gods and Empires, we travel to ancient Egypt, to a story of betrayal so complete that it reshaped an entire mythology. A god who murdered his own brother, dismembered him, scattered the pieces across the world, and still lost. The story of Set is not what you think it is.